And good. Hey, Tony. Good to see you. All right. So we are live on YouTube. Katie, thanks for taking the lead this week. Good to see everybody. Looks like our numbers are dropping a little bit. It must be summer vacation. So I just embedded the slides and synced it on the master. So if folks want to follow along, those are there on the week 6 seminar page. So go ahead, Katie. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Clint. Well, it's good to be here, and hopefully we'll have a few more join us live, but if not, they can join in virtually later, but it's good to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should be able to see the presentation now, and I'm going to open my chat so I can see that's happening too. And I apologize if sometimes I'm looking to the side. That's my setup today. All right, well, welcome to week 6. As we go through the topics today, one thing we'll be talking about is chapter 5 in our text, which is using tools to support connected learning. And I think sometimes I feel like it's, we get to finally talk about tools, because we try very hard to be focused on what tools are used for, which we should be. But this week we get to talk about some of those tools that help us in our teaching and learning. So I liked this quote from the chapter, and as you read it, I hope that you take this lens, use this lens as you go through the chapter, that technology in communities is essentially just a means of creating fluidity between knowledge segments and connecting people. So these tools help our overall goal of being connected educators. So I wanted to start out with this question of, what are your favorite classroom and educator tech tools? So we're going to be using Poll Everywhere to collect some responses. But before we jump into that, I want you to think about, as it says, not just classroom and teaching tools, but you can add those. Also educator tools, tools that help you as you're teaching and presenting as well. Consider software that you like to use, whether it's software on your computer or in the cloud or on the web. Hardware or add-ons and tools that you use, apps that you use. And as I said previously, as you consider these, think again about these tools that create that fluidity, tools that connect. Using Poll Everywhere gives us the opportunity to both see responses sort of floating around on the screen, and then I will also shift to our word cloud view. And if you've used word clouds before, you're aware that they not only group the words in interesting ways, but they can enlarge the words that show up more frequently from people. So a couple of hints for using Poll Everywhere. One is that if you have a phrase instead of just one word that you would like to enter, if you put a tilde, that little curved thing, so usually it's a shift in the accent key. So if you type that tilde instead of a space between the two words, it will keep your phrase connected in the word cloud, okay? Another thing is that you can re-add tools in your response that you see other people add. So if somebody, for example, says they love using Twitter and you think, so do I, add it again and we'll see how big it gets. All right, so let's give it a try. I'm going to switch over to my Poll Everywhere, and you'll see that I have actually added some responses already that were from the text, and you can add to it. The instructions are on the screen, but I'm also going to add the web link to the Poll Everywhere into the chat. You are certainly welcome to text as well. Texting rates apply. So go ahead and start to add your favorite tech tools into our brainstorm. Good, I'm starting to see some come in. There's an example of Adobe Spark with the tilde that connects it, and you'll see in the word cloud how that does it. Oh, good, there's a new one, Screencastify. We've definitely been using that to connect in this course, great. That's a new one to me, talking points. Now, if you have something that you want to comment on as people are typing away, feel free to turn on your mic and share what you like about some of these things. What does Mentimeter do for you, for example? So feel free to talk while people are typing as well. I like that we're getting specific there with the breakout rooms within a tool like Zoom. We'll take a quick switch over to our cloud view and see how that's coming along. And as I said, that does a nice job of showing us which things are starting to stand out. So whoever put in talking points, if you're willing, turn on your mic. I'm interested in hearing about that one and what it does for you and your students.
Okay, so I did it. I use talking points instead of like Class Dojo to communicate with my parents. And I really liked it because I could put in multiple parents. I could put a step parent or a grandparent or whoever needed communication about that student. And then I could attach documents or just send it appeared to them as a text. And then I could do it either on my computer or on my phone. When they responded to me, it was private. And so they couldn't see each other's. But because I was team teaching, my co-teacher could also see the messages that I had sent and that I was receiving. So it was open communication between the two of us, plus with my parents and my students. So it worked out really good for communication to build that, especially during closure of schools.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it ties in so well to our gear for the week too, with that communication piece with parents and community. And while some of these like social media tools are great for sharing out kind of to the world, I think your point there, Sarah, is well taken, that sometimes you need a nice way for that individual communication to happen. And it's not always phone calls anymore. Sometimes it still is, and sometimes it needs to be. But I like that it gives you some more options, faster options. So thank you.
Well, and I liked it because I could send out a text to the whole class, or I could just select students, or I could just do it to like one particular person. And the difference between it and like Remind was that the parents just saw it as a phone number and they could respond back and forth to me, and we could just see just our conversation without having to do the whole group message thing.
Yeah.
So it was really nice. And you could put hours on it when you wanted to accept notifications and things. So to me, it was handy.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. I'm curious. I mean, we know that in the state of Utah, you know, we have this Canvas contract and other things. What specifically does Canvas allow you to do that increases this ability to be a connected educator? Does anybody want to share some of the specific tools in Canvas that help them out that way?
I'll share, Katie. This is
Carol.
Carol. So for me, I love being able to put comments on students' assignments and submissions. that's super helpful. And just to be able to annotate sometimes, or even just leave a video comment back is really nice. So I appreciate that, being able to connect that way when it's just on assignments. And then I really like the discussion that we do, you know, and just being able to connect in that way as well. That I think between the students, that connection is really made, and video option, I think, is a really good way to do that.
Thank you, Carol. I agree, and I've actually really enjoyed the enhanced discussion posts that we've had in this course, not only to give students a little bit more choice, but I agree with you that that connection is different when you can see and hear each other. Thank you. Well, I am going to leave this poll everywhere going. So as the course, as the today's little meeting goes on, continue to add tools in there that you particularly like. And then by the end of our meeting today, we'll have a nice word cloud that I will screen capture, and I'll add it into the presentation. So it'll show there in our course module. So great. We love tools, and usually, you know, educators, especially those in an EdTech program, are very ready to share their favorites and what they've been using. So thank you, and continue to contribute. So as we've mentioned, I think that it's good to return to this quote from one of the authors. Cheryl talks about, again, reminding us that it is important, in fact, most important, to continue to focus on the learning with these tools and not get lost in how cool the tool is. I think the coolness, the cool factor is something to be considered because it gets us excited and gets students engaged. So that's not a bad thing. But ultimately, we need to return and say, okay, how can I use this tool effectively to really serve the learning? So. Great. Well, in addition to talking about a bunch of tools, as you read chapter 5, you'll also come across a section about your digital footprint. So now that we're all teaching digital citizenship and media literacy a little bit more than we used to, I think this phrase is much more common. But we're going to just take a quick look at it and, you know, review. So what is our digital footprint? Well, essentially, it's all the activities and behaviors in your online spaces. We talk a lot with the digital footprint about the fact that everything you post online is recorded. It doesn't go away, even when you take it down. And so oftentimes we talk to students about being very cautious with what we post. Are we sure that we really want that to be our long-lasting impression to the digital world? So it's good for educators as well to really think about what your digital footprint is. So we're going to take a moment to give this a try. Open up a new tab in your browser, and I want you to Google yourself and see what comes up. Now, depending on your name, oftentimes how common it is, you might need to also add Utah at the end of your search, or maybe your city, or even the word educator, if you need to help fine-tuning down to the right person. But give it a try, and I'm curious, you know, what do you find? Do you like what you see? Do you see anything at all about you? Or is it some stranger who has your name and is doing sketchy things online? I don't know. So go ahead and just, you can share in our chat some of the things that you find good. Clint is, you know, a great football player. He's found through his searching. You can also turn on your microphone and share out loud. What are you finding? Is it you? Is it not you? Is it positive? Is it not? Go ahead.
My work page and my YouTube channel is number 9 and 10.
Nice.
So I did okay.
You did do okay. Yeah, it's good when you're like, oh, I am making an impact. People can find me. People know who I am. Impressive, Clint.
It's not a common name though.
True. I also think sometimes that because like our computers are getting smarter and they know sort of the things we search for. So sometimes I think I find my stuff more easily because it knows I've searched myself before.
Filter bubbles. You ever
Yeah.
heard Cody Spenlove talk about filter bubbles?
Yeah. So my filter bubble, the very number one response is my Twitter account, which it might not be for somebody else, but it does make me think, okay, what am I posting on Twitter if that's the very first thing people see? So Maddie gets her LinkedIn profile. That's great. I don't know how many of you are linked on LinkedIn. I feel like it's been growing steadily. It started with a group who was very interested in it, but now it's more common. But if you haven't looked at LinkedIn, that's a good one because not only can it then bump up your present, but you can choose exactly what you want to represent yourself there. Yeah, and Erin's seeing all her social accounts. Good. My pictures are showing up in the little images along with some blonde woman I don't know. Huddle and Job. Okay, so those are some other sites that I'm less familiar with, David. Anybody finding anything surprising or someone they don't really want to represent themselves? I'm getting a reporter from the Wall Street Journal, but it's spelled differently. The Catherine is not the same. So actually, I'll do that sometimes too. I'll put Catherine sometimes and Katie sometimes. Derek, I hope it's a cute picture of your wife. Not because I hope your wife's cute, but because I hope she doesn't get mad if you've posted a picture she doesn't like. Oh yeah, David, that's a good one, the governmentsalaries.com. Yeah. I'm getting a lot of UEN stuff, so that's good for me. And some from my old district. All right, well, I watched the video from last summer's course, and I don't think we're getting quite the scandalous results that group got. So maybe we're doing a little better, or maybe people are just scared to share. Oh, Maddie, that's scary, isn't it? Maddie says her phone number and address and places that she's lived are showing up. Yeah, that is creepy. Now, usually, Maddie, I find those on sites where they want you to like pay to get the like directory information. Yeah, it makes you want to go find out. Should I not make myself public in the phone book? What do I need to do? All right, well, hopefully Googling yourself is fun and also, frankly, something that you do every once in a while to kind of see what your footprint is looking like. But it brings up the question that, okay, checkpeople.com. All right. But it does bring up the question of what should your digital footprint look like? So it's not just about being cautious. That's a huge part of it, thinking very carefully of what we post. But it's also thinking about, is it worth it to be active on some of these sites and on the web? Your footprint should be a reflection of who you are as an educator. You should be able to be in control of telling your own story. You may have heard this before, but if you're not telling your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. So be in control of your own content. This is applicable to schools and districts as well. There are a lot of people out there with opinions about K-12 education, public education, etc. Are you going to let them tell their story from their perspective, or are you going to tell your own story? So some of the ideas that were in the text, and if you haven't read it yet, you'll get some more detail on these, but of how to control your digital footprint include developing professional and class websites. In fact, we'll talk about that as part of one of your assignments in just a moment. And always being professional online, and I skipped right over social media as well. I'm enjoying the chat, so keep it up. So does anybody else want to turn on their mic and share what are some other ways that you feel like we can take control of our digital footprints? I think we've got some ideas even from just what we searched. I'm curious if there's anybody else who wants to share some ideas on that.
My one thought I had, because my 3 social media accounts were what came up first.
Okay.
And my thought is whether those are private or not. If it's
Ah.
easy to just click on that and follow me automatically. And I recently finished a digital citizenship class and put everything to private because of it. So I think that's kind of an important part, like one step we can take to actually kind of filter who follows us.
Yeah, and it's a debate, isn't it, Erin? Because if you kind of lock things down, then people don't get to hear your story, don't get to see what you're sharing. But on the other hand, if you leave it wide open, you're definitely making yourself vulnerable to a larger audience.
Yeah.
It's tough. I don't
So
know.
I
So what do
have-
you think then after your Dig Sit class and now
Yeah.
this?
Well, I have a personal account and then kind of a sewing crafting account that I actually kept public, because that's where I want to just let people follow me, or I want to follow people that are open that way, but I don't post pictures of my family or, say we're going on vacation, that kind of thing. So I think it's just a matter of what you post where and who sees it.
I think that's very well said, Erin. And the idea of different profiles is a great suggestion. If you have an educator profile that's open and you're sharing those public good news type of things, awesome. And then maybe the personal stuff is limited. In fact, Danny, in talking about this at another time, said that for her Twitter account is education. And so it's open, it's available for anyone to follow because that's all she posts there. And frankly, those are the only people she follows there too. But on the flip side, her Instagram, if she doesn't know you, in fact, I think she said, if I don't know you well enough to invite you over for dinner, then you're not following her Instagram. It's a little more locked down. It's interesting to think about that too, Erin, with schools and districts. So if you're not aware, I took over as the host of UEN's Some Good Education News, which is a little webcast that we've been doing, copying John Krasinski. Thanks, Clint. And so we try to find good news stories from schools and districts around the state. And there are some districts, whole districts in the state, that you cannot see their tweets unless you request to follow them. And I have requested to follow them and have never gotten a response. So that makes me go, is that the best for making a good school or district digital footprint if you're not letting people see your good news? Great discussion. Thank you for sharing, Erin. Yeah, Clint, 5 different. How do you keep track of 5 accounts, Clint?
I only really use one, the educational one. Mostly.
Yeah.
I got my first name, last name just because I could.
Yeah. And I never did, so I'm still, SAS master, but.
Well, then I have one that's Don Clintoli. Andrew Clark gave me the godfather of ed tech nickname a while ago. And so I tweet, godfather.
So it's all about the account name.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, well, so in addition to what you'll read in the text this week, we are also focused on Gear 5 of the Future Ready Framework. And so Gear 5 has 5 elements within it, and we've alluded to some of these already. But the first element is local community engagement and outreach. So you'll have a chance to dive into how your school and district is really reaching out to the community. Element 2 is global and cultural awareness. So this one, maybe how are you reaching out, and also how are you bringing others' perspectives and experiences in to your school or your district. Digital learning environments as connectors to local and global communities. It's been interesting to read what people have said about virtual and digital and blended learning environments during COVID versus after COVID, because I think we definitely learned that there are some things that do really well in person, some things that do well online, and then that blended combination. And so I like this as an example of why we don't want to just get rid of these digital environments post-COVID, because we can really use them to not only create that anytime, anywhere learning we've all been writing about, but also to connect to these local and global communities that are difficult to connect to without that nice digital learning environment. So consider that as you're exploring what your school and district are doing. Parental communication and engagement, this is one that we did bring up already. Huge, right? What can these tech tools that we're reading about in the book do to enhance this? What is your school and district doing? And then element 5 is your district brand. So branding is interesting. When people Google your district, what do they find? Is it easy to find the district? Is it consistent? Is there a vision statement, a logo, things that are readily identifiable as your district? How about your school? How about you as an educator? Do you have a brand? So we'll get to explore some of those this week. So let's check in about our assignments. So this week you'll read chapter 5. You'll post an enhanced discussion by Sunday night and have your written assignment in by Wednesday night. And so chapter 5, as we mentioned, is on using tools to support connected learning. And then discussion number 6, as I mentioned, you will be building and sharing your own professional website. And then you will create a video that will explain and give a little tour of that website to your peers. And Clint has actually posted a link to an example where he goes through one of his websites, his SEDC website, right? And so that's a great example for what you're going to do as well. And then, of course, responding to peers. So that'll be a good conversation. All right. And then the Gear 5 paper is about community partnerships, as we just mentioned. So a few reminders when it comes to the papers. We've mentioned it before, but again, be sure that you are sharing the facts, what your district and school or school are doing, and also that you are analyzing your district's readiness. Okay, so I'm still seeing a lot of this is what's happening, and a little of this isn't so great, this is going well. So what do you think about all of that? What should your district's next steps be? Are they meeting the mark? How are they measuring up? Do you have ideas, suggestions? So dig into that analysis and critical thinking a little bit more. Okay, and then also just a reminder on the APA formatting, we're doing pretty well. I have noticed that it would be helpful for people to include a title for their paper instead of just jumping right in. Also consider best writing practices like an introductory paragraph headings if they're appropriate for different sections, and a concluding paragraph. It helps when I get the context and you give me a little overview of what you're about to share in your paper. So if you can include those, and of course, don't forget to cite where you're getting your information and use that APA formatting. Do any of our other instructors want to mention anything about assignments, things that you want to see more of, or okay, looking good. All right. Well, great. We're excited to see what you share. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, and I did see in the chat there was just a question about sharing Canvas site as your website. Yeah, you definitely can turn to things you've already created, or obviously you can create something new as well. So, okay. All right. Well, if there aren't any questions, thank you for your time today. Here's all our contact info again, and of course it is on the course homepage. And we will then see you in our seminar again next week, and Tony will be heading up that one.
Yep.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Katie. Great job. Instructors, anything?